Hi, I'm Mitch, and welcome to the Restoration Road, where my guest today is my third of 4 daughters, Lilly Kruse. Lily's going to sit down and share with us her first year of playing Division I volleyball at Liberty University and the insights that she has from that experience. You will not want to miss it. Lilly, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Lilly! You are a Division I volleyball player at Liberty University, and I want to talk about how you got there and then what the first season was like. Because there's very little out there on what an athlete goes through. I just want to peer into that first season, and you give us an inside look and also an inside look into your heart. Sound good?
Sounds great.
When did you know you loved volleyball, beyond anything else or any other sport?
I would pinpoint, I played volleyball on a team since 5th grade, but I would pinpoint the time that I fell in love with volleyball would be when I started playing club volleyball in 7th grade. And I think naturally I had a tendency to be quieter on the court, and I had my coach, Ashley Robbins, tell me, Lily, you don't have an option. Volleyball is a game of energy. It's a game of runs and momentum. You have to be loud and you have to get excited. And I just started to fall in love with the game and the process, and I wanted to be the best, and I wanted to play and compete, and I wanted to win.
I got a story to tell. That 7th grade tryout, we go in, I'm begging a girl I coached in basketball to put you on her regional team, and we would never leave the city of Fort Wayne for any of your matches. And you didn't like the way you played at the first tryout.
Mm-mm.
And you were in the Lakewood gym at night when there was no practice going on. We put up the net, and you worked on the things that you wanted to improve. I think it was serve receive, actually the direction up passing, I would say, and there were some other things. And you go to the next tryout, and I watch them move you from a 3s court to a 2s court and then to a 1s court. And we found out later they were chasing you out of the building to let you know that they wanted to put you on the 1s team. So I remember telling you in our family room that night, Lily, it might not ever get better than this. You had no expectations, and out of nowhere, you're on the 1s national team. I was wrong about it might not get better than this. Okay, so you love it, you love club. What are some of the highlights you experienced in high school and in club?
Initially, 2 highlights that come to mind is the first tournament I ever won in club volleyball. The first big tournament was Bluegrass in Louisville, and that's a very major club volleyball tournament. That's where recruiting people come, that's where coaches are, and it's just very competitive all around. And so it was really cool to see our small club from Fort Wayne, Indiana, kind of put ourselves on the map, and it was really fun, and everything was just flowing, everything was just working. And I still remember to this day, and I was pretty young at that time, but it's still just a highlight to me, and I love those girls that I played with and still am in touch with them today.
We plowed through some big city teams. I remember Atlanta and some other ones, and the thing I remember most about it is you took your hitting to another level that day, and after you would hit, you would go like this. It would just kind of hold it there for a little bit, and you were so focused, and I thought, this is a new milestone for her.
I think also part of that, the hitting did come together, but Cassie Till was my setter at that tournament, and I feel even when I see her today, I remember that day and everything was just clicking with her. That was
awesome.
Really good, yeah.
And then what about high school?
High school volleyball, I loved the girls that I played with. I thought it was a blessing to get to play with my best friend and to just have that culture at Lakewood too, where God was a huge part of it. And I think a highlight for me was definitely the first sectional championship in school history, and then in turn going to regionals and winning the first round of regionals.
Put you in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, it was a really cool atmosphere to load up the bus, to go and be there for all day, to play in the morning, and then we rented this house where we hung out and we had a pregame meal and we napped, and then we were ready to go for round 2, and it was just really cool to feel that high-level athlete experience with the girls that I had loved playing with all through my high school career.
Well, how did you determine your college selection process?
The recruiting process, honestly, exciting at first, but eventually did take quite the burden on me. It's discouraging after a while to get turned down, and it's not always a skill thing. Sometimes it's a fit thing, sometimes it's a we already have your position, your class thing, and the way it all just starts to pile up, you start to doubt yourself, you start to doubt, am I even good enough to play collegiately? And I think that's where I saw God really work in my life, is especially through Liberty, and there was just a feeling I had on campus. I even told the coach when I committed, like, sometimes you just know, and, like, I just knew there was just butterflies, and I've never had that for college before, and,
Mm,
um, it was like a we have your position, your class thing with them for a while, and they had been a front runner, and so I had kind of almost had to accept, like, okay, well, Liberty would be great, like a Division I Christian program, but it's just not a fit right now. And so I put that aside. And then to have them reach out after going through all that and after being at a very low point in my recruiting process, it was just really encouraging to see God work like that. I remember going to practice that night after getting an email from the assistant that they wanted me to come on a visit and they wanted to see me play. And I immediately walked up to Kelsey, my sister who coaches at Empowered, and then to my best friend Taco on the team at the time and telling them, like, this is a God thing. Like, I was so discouraged. I just got an email from the Liberty assistant coach, like, what could be better? And from there, it did just feel like a God thing the way it all worked out.
Liberty won on every element of the grid that you had on where you wanted to go. It just won. Like, and I remember telling you we would have settled for less. And it's almost like God had something better for than what we were gonna accept.
Mm-hmm.
So Liberty wins on all fronts. But shortly before you leave for Liberty, there's a coaching change. I'd like you to talk about that.
Yes. I was actually just recently talking about this, and I feel like with any change in general, especially in sports, like, that's going to rock some people, that's going to rock the team. And I definitely was kind of shaken when I heard that news. I was definitely upset because there's just this fear that sets in of the person who recruited me is no longer going to be coaching me.
Mm-hmm.
So the person who is coaching me didn't recruit me, doesn't know what kind of player I am, and has a whole different avenue and plan for my course of action at Liberty than the person who I initially committed to the school through. And so I was nervous to know going in that I no longer had that person that I had gotten to know. But once I got to Liberty and once I met Coach Johnson and also his supporting staff, Cassie got to stay, and then also Coach Brett, who he brought in. I just could tell that God really had my best interest in mind. It ended up being a really great fit for the program and the entire team being very happy with that. So.
Well, one of he had reached out to you a couple times that summer, and then one of his first acts as head coach was he wanted to have all of you come, I think, 30 days earlier than what we had planned. So we're on the middle of our vacation, our family vacation that we had moved up earlier in the summer so you could go.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of it, halfway through it, I had to put you on a plane and have you go through customs yourself and go to Liberty University on your own. Were you the only athlete dropped off at Liberty University by somebody other than your parents?
I absolutely was. And it was kind of a good thing. Ended up being a blessing in disguise, I guess, because when all my teammates, my incoming freshmen with me, were saying bye to their families and they had those couple days of being sad, like, I was already ready to take on what was there because I had already had those days.
I want you to talk about your fellow 3 incoming freshmen.
I think that is something God has really blessed me with, are my 3 incoming freshmen, because I've always had a lot of teammates that I've been friends with, a lot of girlfriends, and I've always had sisters. But the amount of really close girlfriends that I've had growing up, like, hasn't been as abundant. And so I have, like, my best friend Allie here, I have Taco, and I have, like, a few girls from club that I stay in touch with. But the way that those 3, along with myself, have been able to connect has been really unique and, like, really special, because it does feel like I'm used to having 3 sisters, and that's what it feels like there, is that I have 3 more sisters that I'm living with, doing life with, like, we do everything together.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really thankful for them.
That's awesome. So you hit the training, and the coaches can't really be with you or be training you. It's more of the athletic training. And then you have practice begin. So you're there probably 6 or 8 weeks. You're moving around from different rooms as they move the athletes around. The football players are there.
Mm-hmm.
The athletes are all there. And practice starts in August. What's that like for you? First D1 practice.
Honestly, I was just so excited, especially once it began, because I love volleyball. I love to play it. Like, that's an outlet for me. And the team was very welcoming, and I just loved being with them. And obviously, there's nerves, there's anxiety, like you want to be your best. And um, I just loved the way that our practices were set up with so much playing, because that is very freeing to go into that environment where you're already nervous, already shaken about trying to prove yourself in this new atmosphere. But then what we're doing is playing volleyball, and like that's what I've done my whole life. So it's fun and it's intense, and like the volleyball is better than any volleyball I've ever played. And I think that's something that really energizes me. So I loved those weeks of preseason. Honestly, like our bodies hurt. I was probably more sore than I'd ever been, but like we were playing hours and hours a day, like practicing twice a day plus workouts, and it was honestly like heaven for me to be able to train like
I
that.
thought it would be. The game is the best teacher in many ways.
Mhm.
And you had worked diligently every day. I'm saying this all for a purpose. You were Player of the Year in our area. You had about 2,000 kills. You led the state in aces. You were top in the nation, top several in the nation in aces. And you go there, and this is why I'm saying this, everybody's good, right?
Mhm.
It's like almost everybody's like that. It's like
Mhm.
you just walked into a whole room of people who have maybe worked like you, excelled like you, and then some are even taller, right?
Yes. And everybody says that, like everybody who goes to play a Division I sport is told, like everybody's going to be good. You're no longer going to be the best standout in the room. Like everybody's going to be competing for position. And you understand that at the time, but it is totally different when you're in it. Like
Mhm.
when you start to experience it, when you're sitting on the bench for the first time and you've never really had that in your high school career, like when you see other people competing against you in drills and beating you, it's definitely different, and it's an adjustment, and it forces you to get better though. It forces you to level up. It forces you to figure out what you're gonna do um, to be able to compete with everybody else, because everybody else loves the game. Everybody else is great at the game, and everybody else wants to play in the game.
You had a few scrimmages to begin the season before you played your first match, which was going to be in Fort Wayne, thanks to Steve Florio. He did
Yes.
that as a gift to us, and Coach Johnson reciprocated. I want you to describe the first serve in Vines Arena.
You did this on purpose. Okay, first of all, to preface, I'm not making an excuse, but Vines Arena does have some interesting lighting.
Okay.
On top of being nervous for being the first time playing in there, um, and also a very high risk, high reward serve to be jump serving. And I will say, I'm not sure how long it took for that ball to land, but it soared to the back of Vines Arena, a very,
It went to the library, Lily.
a very big
It
arena.
went to the library.
It was like the worst serve of my life.
So adrenaline, right?
Mhm.
It's just there's adrenaline. There's probably things inside you've never really felt before. But you do well in the scrimmages, and you feel like you're really competing in practices. And over the next maybe 10 matches, I don't think you see the court.
Mm-mm.
What in the world is going on inside you?
I feel bad for a coach's job to
Yeah.
have to please 17 people, because it's impossible. Not everybody can play,
Correct.
and to manage that many expectations. And so you definitely start to doubt yourself. I started to doubt my own performance, and it gets frustrating to be going in every day, to have volleyball be that big of a part of my life, and then not feel like it's working out, not feel like I'm getting out of it what I used to. And so that can be very discouraging.
We talked about it, and you said you did not want to be that player that goes and talks to the coach about it. And so as we processed it, you came up with the plan. I had shared with you that since you were a little girl, when you prayed for things, God seemed to answer those things. So why don't you pray that he'll approach you, if you want to. And I said the other thing is, why don't you specifically work on the skills that you think need to be improved in order to make it into the lineup. And you immediately said, I don't know if you remember this, show him, don't tell him. I like that. Okay. And you were already working outside of practice. You had done that. You've kind of made a living of that, and you were doing that at Liberty as well. But you took an initiative with a particular coach, and then when you prayed that the head coach would approach you, something happened. Like you talked about those two things.
Yes. Um, the first conversation I ever had with him, I went into his office and I had prayed about it beforehand, and I didn't know how I was going to go about it. I didn't know if I wanted to talk about playing time because everybody does that. And as soon as I walked through the door and, was like, hey, coach, how are you? It was like he opened up the door for that conversation that I wanted and needed to have.
Mm-hmm.
It was his initiative,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very much so an answered prayer. And so I took what I learned from that conversation, and we went a couple more weeks of playing and traveling and practicing. And then again, I was feeling discouraged again. I knew how I'd felt after a previous conversation with him, so I was like, another conversation with him would be great to see where I'm at now, see what I can work on. And I just prayed about it, and literally the next day at practice, he had a sign-up sheet on the whiteboard for signing up for one-on-one meetings, like mid-season meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I went into my meeting, I told him that. I said, this is literally an answered prayer. Like, I prayed I would have an opportunity to talk to you, and literally I came to practice the next day and you had a sign-up sheet for one-on-one meetings. And so I just think that's really cool how that worked out and has played a part in building a relationship with my coaches.
Mm.
And then with that said, with the extra work and the extra reps, I reached out to our assistant coach, Brett, and I was just like, Brett, could you serve some balls to me today in the gym? And so I went in between my two classes and he served to me. And afterward, he said this token phrase. I said, thank you so much, Brett. Like, I really appreciate it. And he said, yeah, no problem, Lily. Anytime. I said, oh, okay. Like, I'm definitely going to take you up on that. And pretty soon after that, I texted my coach from club volleyball. And I was like, Yvonne, you'll never believe this. I worked with my assistant coach today. And he said, anytime. And I feel like if you would have gotten a hold of him before I did, you would have warned him, because any time is literally going to be any time for me.
You texted me and said he's going to be sorry he opened that door.
Yes. So I have been so thankful for his investment, because he's a great coach and he knows the game really well and he knows how to instruct just very to the point and clearly. And so to be able to have the opportunity to work with him outside of practice, in addition to the great practices and instruction that we get there, was really helpful.
So you're working really hard. You're working outside practice. Match comes along. I don't think it was one I could go to.
Mm-mm.
And you get inserted in the match. What's going through your mind? Like, there's no warning, right? There's no, like, before the match, hey, Lily, if we're up, I'm going to... No, you're just standing there. You're cold after, a couple sets or whatever. And what does he say?
It kind of goes something like this. The bench, have quite the culture. We have a lot of cheers. We get really into it. We try to mimic that team that ESPN did a special on, where we do like
Monmouth.
Yeah, the dead fish. We do the dunking. We do like the people passing out. We do bowling, like anything you could think of. And so I'm just in my own world, leading the cheers.
Uh-huh.
And we were up a lot, and you get a Lily down the bench. You're like looking around, like looking, who's he calling? Maddie, like he wants you. And then, everybody around you's kind of like, Lily, Lily. And so then you just kind of get shoved into it. And I was literally the most nervous I had ever been in my entire life. But I guess where I found my comfort was definitely in my teammates. And naturally, ever since that conversation I had with Ashley in my 7th grade year of club volleyball, where she said, you got to be loud. That's what I've been on the court. So I was able to find comfort in that. Like, even if I'm stressed out about performing right now, at least in between every point, I can do what I know how to do and just celebrate my teammates. And they in turn celebrate each other so well. So that was really comforting, and it was just fun to play.
You excelled in that opportunity that was given to you. You were ready, you were prepared, and you excelled. And it leads to you playing a little more. And then it comes to the point where you're going to start. How did that make you feel?
We don't talk about the starting lineup very much at all. I mean, because we're a team and like we're all trying to get better in practice. So we don't talk about it a lot. It's not like he pulled me aside and was like, hey, Lily, you're going to start this weekend. Mm-hmm. It was just kind of like you start to get this feeling like, oh, I'm starting to be on this side of the net more often. Like, oh, like these are the people who usually start and I'm on their side with them. So like, I wonder if he's thinking I'm going to start. And honestly, not until like the day of 5 minutes before the match was I even sure that I was going to start.
It's pretty businesslike in that regard, yeah.
And I just felt very supported by my teammates for sure. I had Maddie, who I talked about earlier, like go out of her way to tell me like, hey, Lily, like you're going to start this weekend and I'm really happy for you as a teammate and as a friend.
That's
And
priceless.
that spoke volumes to me because we're the same position. Any other day, it could be her.
Yeah.
Like she is a stud volleyball player. And so like coming from her, that meant so much to me. And so definitely there's just adrenaline and there's just a desire to want to use this opportunity to prove myself, but also to make my team better and to win.
Well, what goes on from there is unbelievable. You had several matches, you didn't leave the court. Your team wins 6 consecutive conference matches. You earned the spot to go to the tournament, the conference tournament for the Atlantic Sun. A couple times, you're the play of the week. We're in the car, and I'm getting ready to go home from watching you on the weekend with your mom, and something pops up on your phone, and you're the ASUN Freshman of the Week for that performance of those 3 matches. It was just incredible. And so it just turns on a dime because of your hard work and then that you were able to contribute when you got in. And you go to Lipscomb, and I watch at home because we couldn't come to that one, and I couldn't believe what I saw. The 17 kills, probably robbed of a couple more, the aces, the excellent passing, which I was most proud of because I know how hard you were working at that. And we saw something really, really special in you. And evidently, your coaching staff does too, because you end up being ASUN all freshman team. And Coach bestowed a really cool award on you at the end of the season. Can you talk about what he said that night?
Well, this night was our end of the season banquet. It was just our volleyball team. A few parents made it out, but it was in the middle of the week, so it was mostly just us and our staff, our coach, our trainer, our athletic trainer. And
I should say how the season ended. You made it to the tournament semifinals, and you had beaten Florida Gulf Coast in a set to start the match before you started pulling players because you knew you were going to play them again, probably. Right. And so you won the first round of the tournament. You're playing Florida Gulf Coast in the semifinals, and you ended up losing, and it's devastating. Like, you just hate it. I mean, I understand what that feeling is. So you've gone through a tough season. They win the first round of the NCAA tournament, upsetting University of Central Florida. So you've had a great season, and you're sitting in the banquet, and Coach starts talking.
And so previously, he had asked me for the banquet to put together a little highlight reel of the season. And I had been doing that for a couple trips that we went on. I just thought would be something fun to do to commemorate just the season in general. So it's mostly just like little video clips of us either playing or dancing or just goofing off where we eat, and then put to music. And so I put together like a 15-minute long video of highlights of our season. And so we watched that at the banquet, and then Coach got up and started speaking, and he thanked all of his supporting staff, and then he talked about each senior, Victoria Baptista and Margaret Latchford, who were both very foundational players for our program, not only for their performance, but also for the people and their character and for just how driven of players they are, each of them. And so we honored both of those seniors, and then I thought that was going to be it because he had told me previously when I talked about the video, like, we're basically just going to eat, play your video, and I'm going to talk about the seniors. And he pulled out this plaque, and he started sharing. He said, we have a new annual award that we're going to give, and it's called the Flames Award, and it's just for somebody who embodies Liberty Volleyball, who works hard, loves their teammates to the best of their abilities, and just excels and just represents like what we want Liberty Volleyball to be about. And in my mind, like, every girl on this team could be that. Like, every single one of these girls loves the Lord, loves their teammates better than I could have ever asked or imagined on a team. And when he says, and that girl is, I'm expecting literally anybody else in the room, and he says Lilly Kruse. And so I walk up, and he has like my name on the plaque as the first name of several to come. And it was honestly just such an honor. Like, I was so flattered, so appreciative, and that just really meant so much to me, especially for just how far the season had progressed, and just like everything leading up to that point. It meant a lot to me coming from him as a coach and as somebody who could just see that in me and be able to encourage me in such a way.
Lilly, we're proud of you. I'm eager to see what happens next. You're just getting started, and it's going to be exciting. You're training hard and smart, and a lot of people are investing in you. Empowered Volleyball Club is proud of you. You've had so many cool occurrences, including Brooke Sweat, Carrie Walsh's beach partner. Hopefully they'll be in the Olympics, and she was there when your season ended, and she said, Lilly, I watched you last week. I watched you kill us with your serve and your hitting. You're a great player, and you got a bright future. Keep your head up. And those moments are just priceless, and I'm just so happy that you are where God wants you to be at Liberty University, and you're doing well academically too, and your convocations are unreal.
They definitely are.
So Lilly, thank you so much. Love you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe you're going through a trial and you're thinking, how do I get out of this? How do I take this to the next level? And I just want to come back to that word initiative. You got to take the initiative to take the first steps. So wherever you are, take those first steps to God and pray to God and ask Him for His guidance and His leadership. And through the Word of God, the people of God, and the Spirit of God, He will prompt you and lead you to those first steps. And if you would just take the initiative, you will find that God's vision for that initiative will be followed by His provision. And He will use you, win, lose, or draw, no matter what happens and whatever your circumstances are, He will use those to shape you more like Christ, because that's God's definition of success. Are you a thermometer or a thermostat? Romans 12:2 says, do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. You know, a thermometer reflects the temperature in the room, but a thermostat sets the temperature. And it's all because it has been touched by the programmer's hand. And that allows the thermostat to first listen and then respond to that environment. That's God's idea for us as leaders, that we would first listen and then be able to respond and set the temperature, because we're not pretending to be conformed to the patterns of this world, but we have been touched by the programmer's hand. Each week, I write a devotional similar to this that I would love for you to have. It only will take a minute or two for you to read, and you can get signed up for that by going to mitchkruse.com and clicking on devotional.